So today we're gonna do some fun stuff. We've been building this smart contract called Beaver Whisperer, and the idea was to push it on network and use it. So that's what we're gonna do. We've built it, we deployed it in the last video on the Ring Cabby test network, and in this one we're gonna build like very simple React app that's gonna interact with the contract using MetaMask plugin. So it's hopefully gonna be fun. So this is the contract. It's not necessarily important. It's just, yeah, that it's here. So let's go to terminal. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna create a new React app and then name it something like Portrait. Why not? It is gonna create the React app, right, with the basic stuff. We're gonna start it in a second and see what we get. My original plan was to build it into my website, which I have done already, but it would be too confusing, I think, because there are a bunch of different stuff on my website and they kind of interact with each other. So I'm just gonna do like a simpler version here on the fresh app with nothing in it. And also I'm not gonna pay too much attention to stuff like, you know, error handling and and like styling, but I'm gonna mention a few things around it just to do that. Right, so we got create React app now, so I guess I put it in the blockchain. Yes. So if we do yarn start here, and yeah, it opens a different browser, never mind. Right, this is the default React app that you get whenever you do something there. So that's good. Now we're gonna kill it and open this in VS Code. So let me make it a little bit bigger. Nice. So basically this app.js is the main file that you want to look at, and this puts a bunch of things here, but let's do like a basic structure of the website maybe, and then let's deal with the blockchain integration part. So yeah, we don't want any of that. Let's just keep this. Put a div here. Test if it works. Oh yeah, we haven't started it. We got it. So let's start it again. So it should work. Perfect. If we update anything here, the update's there. Perfect. Now we don't need that. Let me turn off auto formatting. Format on safe. Yes, that's what I want. So this might be a little bit fast, but it's not like the idea here is not to do React coding too much. But what we're gonna do here is if you remember, the whole idea about the token is that we have this NFT, and the owner of the NFT can change a text in it. And then what I'm gonna use it for is there's gonna be a section on my website that shows the text of the owner. So you could come up with similar applications, like maybe like a billboard across the road, right? The person can sell ownership of this right to write something on the billboard, and if you're the owner, you can change what the billboard says. So we're gonna do something similar on the website. Right, so we're gonna just do beaver says, and then here comes the text, right? So let's do this. Let's use the state here and get beaver says and set beaver says state, and then it with empty string. oh, it didn't import it, so we need to choose this one. So we got this nice import here, and then we can do this process. Right? It's empty because it's not doing any fetching, but said in the beginning, I'm just gonna try to do like the rough like sections first, and then do the actual fun stuff. One more thing we want to check is the owner. So let's do that. And yeah, let's one more thing is the last price that we're interested in. We're going to use that to kind of show the input field when we're going to have an option to buy the thing. So that's what we're going to use. So Beaver says here, then we can do like a small text here saying something about who the owner is. The owner. Boom. Yeah. Let's put it in diff into diff so that those two things are together. Like so. Nice. And let's stick to same separator. Perfect. So that's thing number one. Next thing, I'm gonna add several sections here. So there will be this like read section, and then there will be the forms underneath it. But to kind of differentiate, so let's kind of just visually make these things stand out a little bit. So I could write a style here, but I'm thinking let's just do a class. So let's do a class called, I don't know, section. And then if we're gonna go back to the DAPP CSS, this is the default that comes with, you know, React app. We're just gonna add a new section here. Something like border, one big solid white room, and then padding maybe. Oops. Something like 1 AM. Looks good. And then border radius, maybe 1 AM as well. Yeah. And then maybe 6 fixed width. I'm thinking, I don't know, 80%. Cool. This looks good, I think. Yeah. And then margin, button. Let's say whatever, 1 AM. How does that look? Looks good. Cool. So going back to our thing. So this will be filled with read data. Then the next section is gonna be the form to like kind of buy the NFT token. So let's do that. So I just put this here so that, yeah, to illustrate that I'm gonna have multiple sections. But I'm gonna delete this now. And let's do form. And it can be the same class name, I guess. Section. Yes. And in this form, we're gonna have one input, and which is type of number. Yeah, this looks about right. We can, well, actually we want to have the, how does that look now? Looks horrible. Yeah. So let's do one more thing. Let's put a label here, something like price. Yeah, but maybe I'm thinking let's make this like a column kind of thing. We don't need a number diff, I guess. We can just do it in the form. I'm just gonna do, like normally you would probably use some sort of library to help you with the styling and create classes to make it better. But yeah, I'm not gonna do that. So I can do that, and then I can say flex direction here. I can say column. Yes. This looks pretty good. Well, looks decent. And then last thing, I'm gonna put a button here. And it's gonna be submit button. And we're gonna say bye. And yes, let's do here, I guess, some sort of margin. And also here, same here. This looks good. Like it's not perfect. Like it's very small. Maybe we should just make it a bit better. So it's font size. Yeah. This looks better. Maybe here as well. As I mentioned, in the real world, you would probably use some sort of, CSS library like Bootstrap or Materials UI to kind of make this work for you. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, then we're gonna need one more form, which will be for like change the text that it says, right? So we're gonna say new text or something, and it's gonna be type of text, and the rest is similar, change text. So this looks good, I think. Perfect. Yes, and we can type something. Okay, so now we're gonna do one thing at a time. So now we have this section. I'm just gonna hide them and get back to them when we get there. So to hide them, like in the real world, you would actually probably try to do them as a components. Like each section would be its own component. But I'm just gonna do this so that it's simpler. So now I'm just saying, if the false is not true, which is always true, then don't hide it, don't show this part. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. And we're gonna talk more about what the real life condition would there be. Cool. So now there are some things to kind of explain. First thing is that to communicate with the Ethereum network or any network, we need a client. Right? When we were doing deployment, we were using this, Geth client thingy. When we were using the Truffle suite, there was this Ganache client. But when we're running this on our website here, we don't have access. We don't know if the end user will have any sort of this client. So this is the problem that we kind of have, and we need the client for two things. One is to like kind of read data, so to fetch these texts, and another one is to send transactions to, initialize any changes in the state. To do the former, to like send the transactions, that's kind of more difficult because you need to have access to accounts of the user, to sign transactions, stuff like that. So what we're gonna do in this video, we're gonna use this MetaMask plugin, for this. But that would mean that every user would have to have this MetaMask plugin, even the user that only wants to read it, right? And if we're talking like Billboard or some public website that you want to change, you don't necessarily want that. You want everybody to be able to read, but maybe just the person who wants to own it and change it has the plugins. But luckily there's another option we can use, and there are like public nodes of the Ethereum network that you can connect to and read data from. So that's what we're going to do for the reading part. So one of the public providers is this, this Infura kind of service, and you kind of sign up there. I'm just going to log in real quick. Let me open it somewhere else to get the password. I'm gonna log in. Yeah. And then you get access to their node. And the good thing there is that you don't need authentication for doing the reading part. You just need it for, like, as I mentioned, submitting transactions, but we're not gonna do that through that node. Let's see. So you kind of create a project. My one is this one. And then here under settings, you get some URLs. And we're using like the Rinkaby test network, so you change that. And then here's a URL of the node that you can use. So we're gonna copy that and go back to our code. And then I'm gonna create a constant here. Infura was the name of it, I think. Endpoint. Save it. Boom. So you have this. And then, let's go back to the website. So now what we want is, whenever this renders, we want to go and fetch the data. And, so to do that, we can use effect here. And use effect takes a function and then dependencies. If you leave dependencies empty, as what I'm going to do here, that means just runs it basically once. Oh, we need one more thing that I haven't mentioned. Let me do that. Maybe here in the terminal, which is kind of nice, big. One thing we need is a library. So, and that is Web3. So Web3 might sound familiar because we were using that already when we were doing all the testing of our networks, like in the client. This is like JavaScript library that you use to interact with smart contracts, and this is like a most standard way to do that, so you would use that one. So you're gonna install that one. And while it's doing that, we can also check. So here, if you go to Google for Web3 docs, if you spell it right, you get like a documentation about what this library can do for you and how it works. I'm going to cover some parts of it, but if you need more details, then you can go there. Yes. So we're gonna need this Web3 thing, which is the default export there is a class, like so. And then here, what we're gonna do is do instance of that class. Oops, Web3, and we send in the client that we wanted to connect to, like the node, the way to connect to like network, I guess. So we can do this, right? Infura endpoint, which we got before. Now we have Web3 thingy, and yes. Another thing we want to get now is to get our contract object so you can interact with it. Yes. And for that, we need two things. So to create a contract, we would do contract, and then Web3, ETH, and then there is a contract class again. So you want a new here. And we want two things. One is the ABI and another one is the address. So how to get those things? So ABIs, those come from, let me grab my other editor. So when we build this contract, if we look into, let's close this. If we look into this truffle project, one thing it spills out is this build folder with contracts, and there's this JSON file. It has a bunch of information, like some, the bytecode that it compiled to and some other stuff. But one important part is the ABI. To be honest, I just forgot what ABI stands for, but the I is interface. So the important part here is that that's the interface of our contract. So those are the list of methods and what parameters they take and how that works. So that's what the Web3 library will use to kind of create this object of this contract, and we can call methods on it. So we basically need this JSON file. Well, we need just this ABI section of it, but we can just take the whole file. So let's see. I'm just gonna copy that real quick. So it's here. And then if I go back to your terminal here, I'm gonna just copy from here. Everything is on the blockchain there. And build contracts. Yes. And then this Beaver Whisperer. And we can put it right here. So if we look back at this, which is the project we're just building, we can see there's a Beaver Whisperer JSON file right here. And we can even move it to source. It doesn't matter, right? You can put it to assets, folder, or public, whatever you want. So the next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna import contract, or like import Beaver Whisperer from this thing. Right, so we take this JSON file, load it to this variable Beaver Whisperer, and then here, where we are constructing the contract, we can say Beaver Whisperer. Beaver Whisperer .abi. So we have that part. This is perfect. And then another part is the address. So to get the address, we got that several times when we were doing deployment last time. But because we've deployed to like real network, like Ring-Cabby test network, we can take advantage of everything is being public and searchable. So, for example, if I know that I used which account I used to deploy it, so we can look at that account. So let's do that. So I used get, if you remember, to deploy the smart contract, and this just kind of lists your accounts. But if you run it like this lists accounts for the mainnet, but we want accounts for, not mainnet. And to do that, you do data here, and then say Ethereum. I'm reading it from here, right? The default is here, so this is the mainnet, but then there's a Ring-Cabby folder. So you just say get me lists in this folder, basically. And then I have a bunch of accounts, but I think it's number 2 that it deploy. Let's see. So we're just gonna copy the address here. I'm gonna come here, do like, I don't know, Ring-Cabby if scan. Yes. Paste in the address. And let's see what we got here. Yes, right? So make it bigger. So there are a bunch of transactions, but one of them, this one is contract creation. So this is when we created the contract. And if I click on it, this is the contract deployed. So this is the address we want. That's pretty sweet. Put it back here. And maybe I shouldn't have it this way. Now it's even broken. Okay, let's just do full screen now for a little while. So contract address is this. Right, this looks good. So we have a contract. Let's just console log what we get in here. But basically what we want is methods. So just make sure that everything works. We can do this. And then if we go back to, I think, under this non-defined, something's, oh yeah, so it seems like it didn't refresh. Now it works. Had an old code there. And we got back an object, bunch of stuff, and it's kind of small. But if I zoom in, I can see it's a beaver says method, by, those are all our methods. So that's good. So it loads the correct contract here. Okay, so let me put it back here. So next thing, what we're gonna do is to actually read the things. So we say methods, and then let's say beaver says. So if we would look into our contract here, sorry, I know I'm kicking like crazy, must be annoying, but let's have a look here. So our contract has these public fields, and whenever you have a public field, some compiler somewhere creates default getters for them, so you can read them. And to read them, so whenever you would call this as a method kind of thing, you can read the value of this field in the contract. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. So we're gonna come here and say, and then we talked about difference between call and send, but basically call is just when you're reading stuff and you're not creating a transaction, you're just checking the node for value of it. So this is free to do. You don't spend any ether doing this. And also we talked about all that thing being asynchronous, so that's still true. So what we want to do when we get back this thing, right? So we get the result, and then we would like set beaver says with the result, right? But because, and this now works, which is perfect. But whenever you do like thing and then just call method with the thing, you can call the method, you can send directly this method in, so we can just say this, and it will do the calling for us. So this was the work. Oops. Yep. Maybe I should do a new line anyway because it's not visible. Okay, let's do one more for the owner. I'm gonna set owner. Oops. Like this. Nice. Yeah, this looks pretty good. And then let's do one more thing, which is the set last price. Now I don't remember how it was called, but when I look, yeah, it's last sale amount, this thing. Yes, so we need to change this to be this one. So this last sale amount or last price isn't shown anywhere here, but that we're gonna use in the next step anyway. So that's good. So we have this basic setup, and this is already pretty, like when I first coded this was like, ooh, I'm doing stuff. Because this is already going to the Ethereum network and fetching data from there, right? So this is already kind of decentralized app, DAPP, in the sense that it's using the Ethereum network as its database. Right now we're just reading, but we're gonna implement the writing part soon. But that's pretty cool. All right, so that's good. But how now? Now we would like to buy something, I guess. So how it works to get access, if you open this MetaMask plugin, it asks me to unlock it. right? Because now it's locked, so it's not connected to your website, and that's the thing. So you want to connect this to your website. How to explain this? There are a few things you need to do to connect it to your website. Yes, maybe it's here. I don't know. I don't know how did I found out about it. Well, I was just like kind of Google. But basically you need to request a thing from your browser, from the plugin. So you need to say, plugin, MetaMask, I want to use your accounts. So please let me give me access to your accounts. And if you do that, then the MetaMask will ask the user, there will be pop-up we will see in a second, to allow that. So it's like any other, your app on your phone asks you for permissions to, I don't know, access your location or something. So it's very similar to that. But I don't remember where I found how the actual request looks like. So let me just first find it. So this is code of my website. Actually, it's actually this thing. Yeah. So this is the request you need to send. This is how it looks like. So I'm just going to steal this from here and go back to the code we're writing. But because this will create like a pop-up on the page, you want this to happen after user interaction. So after he clicks or she clicks some button. But we also want to know if the user, already clicked the button or not, because we don't want to do this pop-up all the time. So we don't want to show the button if it's not needed. And we can do kind of cool thing. So let's create another state here, which will be the accounts that we want to do. And why we need accounts is because when we're going to send transactions, which is this writing part, you need to send it from some account. So you need to use one of these accounts. So first you need to get the list of accounts the user has and then send from it. So we're going to say useState and an empty thing here. So we have empty accounts at the beginning. That makes sense, I guess. Yeah, this looks good. So here we can say if accounts length, if not accounts length, so if there are no accounts, then let's show a button here, or let's do like a section. No, let's do just button. See if accounts length, and so if this is confusing, I'm sorry, but this is just the way React does stuff. Request or connect MetaMask. Let's see. Gonna talk to it about a second. So what's happening here is that it's using shortened evaluation, I guess it's called. I don't know. So it tries to evaluate this. And if this is false, then it stops there because it's end statement, right? So it's this and this. So if this is false, it's not going to evaluate the second part of it. And it's going to return false. But false in HTML will be returned like empty string, so it will not be visible. While if this is true, it will go and evaluate the last part as well. And the return value of end statement in JavaScript is the last true value. So it's the last value. So it's going to return this thing, right? And that's how this works. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to... Yeah, I know how I can show. So if we open the console here, right? And we say, sorry, this is going off the rails a little bit. If we say 1 and 2 and 4, you see that the return value here is 4. So that's exactly what we're doing, right? But if we say false and 4, we get false back. And this translates to empty string in the HTML, so that's why it shows nothing. Similarly, if you would do or, so if you say false or 4, it's going to return the false true statement, first true statement that it finds. Right, so if we do true, so it works like this. Yeah, sorry for that. So we have this connect MetaMask. Let's make it a little bit, nicer. So font size. Is it 1 AM we were using, I think? Nice. We might want to do cursor. Like what I'm annoyed now is that it doesn't turn to the pointer thing. But let's change that for all buttons. If we go to CSS here, you can say button, cursor, pointer, like so. And it works. Perfect. And well, actually, let's just move this font size there as well. And for the input as well, so we don't need to mess with it here. Oh yeah, it's font size. Why are you not helping me, font? You're supposed to help me here. Oh, come on. Or is it because this needs to, this needs semicolon? I'm rusty. Font size, boom. Like this. Yes. Let's do the same for input. Or rather, just the font size. Boom. And if we go back to our JS, we can now drop this part. And also there's, oh, we want margin as well. Okay, let's put that there as well to get a little bit of spacing. That's always good. And we don't need this. Perfect. And if we go back to FCS, we can add margin, whatever, 1 EM. And then also here. This looks great. Oh, but it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work. Invalid property value. Because it needs to be like this. Yes. So let's fix it here as well. Okay, sorry. So let's get back to it. So we have this button, connect MetaMask. If we don't have any accounts, we're going to try to connect MetaMask, which is exactly what we wanted. So on click here, we're going to say handle connect MetaMask. Yes. Or just handle connect. And then it doesn't exist, so let's write this function. Boom. Now, it's not defined. Oh yeah. Did I lose the thing that I copied? I think I did. So let's go back to the previous code where we stole that piece of code. By the way, later I'm gonna take all this gibberish code that I've just written and put it somewhere like a GitHub or something, so that you can find it and link it to probably a YouTube video that will come out of this. So let's see. Let's say result here, and let's just console log it to see what we get back, because I think we get the accounts back when we connect this. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about given provider here. So that's kind of neat thing. So because not everybody has this MetaMask plugin here, right? And basically what you can do is based on if this given provider is true or not. Oh, we can check what's in there. No, probably not. Based if this given provider is defined or not, you can tell if the user has the MetaMask plugin or not, or some other provider of connectivity. So basically what you would normally do, I'm not going to do it now, but basically in your application you would say, you know, something like const has provider equals given provider, and then this. So this double question mark, first one is negation and the second one is negation again, so it like kind of does nothing, right? But what it does is convert this thing into Boolean value, so it's going to be true or false. You could use this directly, but it just feels more natural for me to convert it to Boolean directly. So this will be true or false value. And if user doesn't have a provider, you might want to show some kind of banner saying like you need to get MetaMask plugin to interact with, again, just the writing part, because the reading part we're using this Infura node right here to kind of read stuff. So the user doesn't need the MetaMask to read stuff, but to change stuff, yes. But I'm not doing this, like I'm assuming this is not null. And if you look into here, this is the Web3 library documentation, and look for what given provider is. It tells you that basically is null if the user doesn't have any provider. So that's why we can use it, you know, to evaluate if the user has the provider or not. But alright, we have this thing, right? So let's see what's going to happen. So if we click this, MetaMask comes up, and we can just unlock it, choose account, and then connecting. And then if we look in our terminal, what we got back is object and the result, and this is the list of the accounts. So what we want to do is, let's call this response. And we can say set accounts to be response result here. This should work. But you probably want to do, like in real life, you would do some sort of validations here to make sure everything's still working. But we're living on the edge, so that's good. But if you noticed, well, let's do this. Right now it didn't even ask me to do anything because it's already connected from the previous iteration. And if you want to try this flow again, you can click this connected, and there's disconnect this account. And it's disconnected, right? And if we refresh the page here, the button's back here. So if you connect, it comes up again, you do next here, and you connect, and it's perfect. So now we have accounts that kind of work. So that's good. So let's do, so here we can say if we have accounts, show this by thing, right? Sorry about that. So what about the price, right? Cannot be a random number, because as you remember, what we said in the contract is that every time somebody buys the token, the next person needs to pay more than the previous one. So if we would try to buy for free, another good question, what the unit of this is, right? For free, it wouldn't work. So let's sort that out first. So the input here, well, first we want to connect it to React. You do that using state. So you do, let's say price, set price equals use state, and let's start with 0, maybe. Sure. and then you do here, this is the input field, right? So we say value equals price. Why do you want to connect? Weird. Now I'm confused. But now you can see that whenever I'm pressing something, it doesn't change. And the reason is that we need to also hook up the onChange handler for this. So onChange, you get the event, and then you do set price, and you do target value. So you could do that, as I just done that, but now it's changing, right? But this gets a little bit annoying to type all the time. So what you can do is use some kind of library like form make and so on to kind of figure out the forms. But this works. One more thing is to kind of initialize the price to the correct price, right? And that's what's happening here. We said we fetching the last sale amount right here, and then we want to basically put this price to be that plus 1. So we can, whenever we fetch this, which, remember happens only once when this whole thing loads, we can do more than just set last price. Yes. So we can do, so it's here, last, let's do this, last price. And we can set it, of course. Boom. And then we can also do set price and last price plus 1. So now it gets, whatever the price is. One more thing we could also do is to set a minimum here, so it's a little bit nicer. And that we would do again on this input. There's a min attribute, and you can set that to be last price plus 1. And now it doesn't, if I'm pressing a row down, it doesn't let me. If I'm trying to do this and submit the form, it says, you need to put the proper thing. So this is good. Let's do something with it. So now on the form, what we want to do is kind of ability to submit it. So on the form, we're going to say on submit, I think, yes. So handle by. And let's implement this function. Nice. Well, that one thing, if you, I don't know why it's still doing this. Why are you trying to, what's the 0? Oh, okay, right. So you see, when we load the application, the MetaMask isn't connected because we haven't clicked this and we're not doing any check at the beginning of the things. We could add a check. And actually, let's do that. That's probably a better way to do this. Let's use a different effect, just because in the future I'm going to change this a little bit. When the application loads, we can do a little bit of defensive coding here and say if web3 given provider exists, basically. And again, no providers here. We want to say, we want to say, let's create a web3 instance with this web3 given provider. So this constructor of this class takes two types of parameters. Either you can send a URL of publicly accessible node, or you can do local provider. So we're providing the local provider from the browser. So this works. And then Web3 has a call to, I think it's on the ETH, get accounts, yes. And then when that succeeds, we can set accounts. So now this works. But the thing is, this get accounts would return empty array if we, well, let's actually check, right? If we disconnect here, yeah, like this, and refresh the page, it returns nothing, and that's because we didn't ask for the permission. Yeah, we didn't request the permission to see accounts yet. So this get accounts returns nothing if you don't have permission to see them. So we're gonna connect again. Boom. Nice. So then handle by. So one thing, when you click this, it kind of refreshes, which you don't want, because you want to handle everything in JavaScript. This is like remnants of the old, not old, but the more traditional way of doing things. When you would submit a form, that would send an HTTP request to your backend, and then backend would, crunch on it and send another web page, like a new version of it back. But nowadays everything's handled on the JavaScript side, and all the HTTP calls are AJAX kind of calls. So what you want to do here is prevent default. So this will stop sending the form on the backend. That's good. And then what we want to do next, well, it's kind of simple in this case. We want to get Web3 instance. And we want to say Web3 methods, and there's a by method. And then we want to send it. And then send takes like an options parameters, and there are two things we need to send, like from, and we're gonna say account 0. Yeah, and let's try that. So if we do this, yeah. Oh, let's do one more thing. Sorry, I'm just skipping around. No, this is fine. Let's do it. Cannot read property pipe undefined. Right, because we need contract. Sorry. So the same thing we've done here. And we're gonna do this, right? What we want is the contract. So again, the instance ETH contract, and then the ABI and the contract address to get the instance of the contract. But this time we're getting it with the local provider, not with the read-only provider that we used before. We're gonna do this. And it pops up MetaMask, and MetaMask is kind of very neat thing here, that it tries to evaluate the function that you're going to call locally and see if that would throw an exception without you spending ether on doing it, because you can see that the amount here is 0, but the gas we're going to pay is something like that. You get when it gets rolled back, when this fails, you get parts of it back, but it's better not to send in this case. And if we would send it, well, actually, let's send it, right? We're going to confirm anyway. And then this is one of the drawbacks of using Ethereum network as your backend, is that it takes time to kind of propagate all this information. We did send it to one of the nodes, but that node needs to propagate it to the whole network. And this takes up to a few minutes. Now we get transactions failed, encounter error. And if we look into console, bunch of stuff. No, that's from previous. But why it failed, right? We want to see why it failed. So to do that, we can go to ethscan here. So this is the address we send it from, and this question mark means that it failed. And if you open this, there's a bunch of information, but here's the status it returned. You're cheap, pay more. which is what we set to return if the user pays less than the previous user. And if we look at the code, we're actually not saying how much to pay, and that's the issue. So we want to say here value is price. So now we're saying you're paying that much. Yeah. So if we refresh this, I guess it refreshed, but let's try again. And now this thing is gone. We can see that we are also sending that amount of, ether. Oh yeah, that's another thing. So the units, right? This is the amount of ether. And this is the amount in way. We probably, okay. Let's confirm this for now. We probably want to show it in both amounts here. So let's do that. Let's do that. So after the input here, we can say, make it small maybe again. Cool, now it's confirmed. I don't know if the owner actually changed. I don't know. It might have been the same account. Well, we'll see. And then we can say, that amount is that much in ether. But how do you calculate the ether amount? There's a Web3 utils, and that's from way. We can say that, and we can say price. Right, so we have this thing, and now it changes, and it's perfect for our case. All right. One more thing that I haven't mentioned is we send this transaction and it succeeds, but React doesn't know that it needs to. It's going to be more obvious when we implement the second form. So let's implement the second form. So accounts, length. And by the way, if we do let's disconnect the account because there's an error or small bug that I noticed here. Connected. If we refresh this, you see that those zeros here, it's because account's length is 0, right? Which evaluates to false, but as we talked before, it returns the first false statement, which is the first 0 here. So that's why we get 0. But we don't want to see zeros here. So let's do the same trick I talked before. Is about has accounts, and we can say accounts length, and you could say something like is higher than 0, but you can also say like just this question marks to translate it to boolean value, and then whenever we do this, boom boom, you replace this with has accounts, and then it's gone. Looks good. Yes, and then another thing is that this buying form, we probably don't want to show it if you're the owner of the thing, right? So let's say one more variable, which is const is owner. And also this form should only be visible if you're the owner, because otherwise it's going to fail on the transaction itself. And we can say if accounts includes, no, let's not complicate this. Let's say account 0 has accounts and accounts 0 is equal to owner. Like you might want to do something more, if the user shares multiple accounts, you want to just choose the correct account and kind of use that. But for our simplicity reasons, we're just going to use always the account 0. Because here in MetaMask, you can have multiple accounts, right? And multiple accounts can be connected to this app. So it's owner. So if the guy is not owner, we want to show the price thing, and if the user is owner, we want to show the other thing. like the new text part here. But this is pretty good. One thing we can do here is to, as a placeholder, set the previous text, right? Which was beaver_says. And then you can type something. And I think there's a min length as well, just to like make it a little bit nicer. So that if somebody would like try to submit empty thing, just kind of, oh yeah. So this is not happy. Let's see what's up. Yeah, that's an issue. So when we're doing this web3 utils price, and we do it at the beginning of the things, it kind of fails with this exception, please pass number as a strings. And the reason why this is happening is that the price, gets back as a big number, which is a different object, not number in JavaScript ways. So it's kind of weird. There are better ways to fix that, but for simplicity, we can just convert it to string like this, and it works. So let's do that and not get sidetracked too much. Yeah, this looks good. Yeah. Oh yeah, we haven't connected this input to React, so let's do that. So when you had the price here, we're gonna do the same way like the new beaver_says. Yeah, looks good. And the default is empty string here. And then here the value is new beaver_says, and then again on change we're doing the same thing as before. So set new beaver_says to e target value. Oops, perfect. So now we can type still, and it kind of works. Yes. So we also want to on form on submit here handle text change. Very original. Oops. And as you would guess, this will be very similar to this call, handle by. So let's do that. But instead of handle by, it's going to be handle text change. Boom. So we still want to do this, right? We still want to get the contract, but instead we want to call a different method, which is called set beaver_says here. Yeah. No, sorry, changed the wrong thing. Here. Set beaver_says, which is the setter for this. And this time we're not sending any money, we just want to say this, right? But if we would call this, it fails because set beaver_says expects one parameter, but we provided 0. So here we're going to say the new beaver_says. Let's try this. So that's the thing, you confirm it. Then we gonna wait. But notice one thing that I mentioned before and I didn't finish. So now the transaction is confirmed, but this still says the previous thing. You need to manually refresh here to get the new data, because it needs to know that it needs to refetch the data from the thing. And how does one do that? So where are we fetching the data is here in this use effect. And we do that at the beginning of the things. Like there are multiple ways of doing this, but one simple, I think, case is just introduce some artificial counter thing. And whenever we change the text, we're gonna bump the counter. And then here, this use effect will be dependent on the counter. And if the counter change, it means like do this again. So let's do that. let's say const change counter and set change counter, and we can say use state, and we can start with 0. The number itself actually doesn't matter at all. It's just that it's better to use number than, for example, boolean, because if you do 2 submission in a row, you still want to change that, but I guess boolean would do that as well, so it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to do that. But then when do you actually want to trigger the change is when you get a response back from these send calls. So there's a send call, and then you can do set change counter to change counter +1. And then we're going to do the same thing for handle by, because that would change the owner potentially. Right? This looks cool. So let's test this. No. I bet that's not how you spell that. But it doesn't matter. So now this, again, transactions running amok. It's going to take a little bit. But in the meantime, one thing to mention, I'm not doing any error handling, right? So I'm always just implementing then, but you probably want to implementing catch as well and do something like show user some pop-up or something. Well, now we see that the transaction finished and the text here changed. So that's, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this video. Oh, one cool thing I want to show as well, maybe. I'm using the same contract in my website. So if we go there, we should now, it's a bunch of stuff, not important, blockchain section. You see, I got this new updated thing here as well, because, it's connected to the same network. So if I would connect here, MetaMask as well, it's, it's just differently styled the same thing basically. Say woof, woof, and I say update here, send the transaction. It's gonna take a little while, but what I'm showing now is that it's gonna change both places. Well, it's actually, you need to refresh on the other place because there's no, subscriber pattern that would follow something. Cool. So you see, I did some like pop-ups here as well, so that looks a little bit different, but this changed. And if we refresh here, it's also different, right? Changed. Yeah. I think that's it. So if you have some questions, now's the time. After this, that's what I usually do. I'm just gonna download the video, upload it to YouTube, and a description there. And maybe I can do description in Twitch as well. I don't know. I'm gonna take this code and upload it there as well so that people can follow along or whatever. See what bad code I've written, put some pull request to it, and yeah, hopefully fix it. Yes. Okay. Well, this was fun. So I'm gonna go now. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.